Their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people, and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
When I'm under, I'm weightless, floating away, and all I think about is doing it again.
Michael Swan is under the influence of his volunteer swim coach. Spending a little time coaching, he helps Michael stay off drugs. Be a coach, a mentor, a volunteer. No matter what it is, you have something to offer. Log on to helpyourcommunity.org or call 877-KIDS-313 and be an influence on the kids in your community. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to WRLR 98.3 FM, the voice of Lake County, and you're listening to the golden voice of the Golden Sports Show. I'm Pat Voss, in with Norm Marion. Every single Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, you can catch us here.
Good afternoon, Pat. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy New Year to one and all.
Absolutely. We have a great show lined up today, actually. Show today looks like this. Here in just a minute, we're going to have White Sox beat writer Scott Merkin on the show. He's calling in just a minute. Then you have at 2:30, we have Kevin Boilard. He is talking NFL for CBS Sports Radio. He'll be joining us again at 2:30, like I said. 3 o'clock is going to be a great interview. I cannot wait. Robert Duran Jr., Roberto Duran's kid, Mr. Hands of Stone, he is going to be calling in at 3, and Patricia Summerland, a.k.a. Sonny of Glow, at 3:30. That is our show today.
Unbelievable. Just, where'd you get all these people, Pat? I know that everybody in Lake County is just waiting to hear what they have to say.
Absolutely. And here we actually have our first call-in guest of the day, MLB.com White Sox beat writer Scott Merkin. Scott, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Pat?
Good. Good to hear from you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Sure. No problem.
Hey, here's what we've got for you today. What is the outlook right now after all the spending and the free agency signings that the White Sox are making? What do you see as an outcome, or the best outcome, best case scenario for the Sox this year?
Well, geez, if you go by the fan base, I think, they will win titles until about 2035 when Abreu's son will be playing first base for the White Sox at that point, I believe. I think that works. I think that works out about age-wise, right? Yeah, he's about 15 years. Sure, why not? No, I think in reality, they've done exactly what they said they were going to do, and you can go back to really the start of the rebuild, and that was put themselves in a position to contend for multiple titles. Now, multiple titles are hard to get. One title is hard to get, as you can ask, the Cubs and the Royals and the Astros, who all were in the picture for multiple ones and just couldn't get it done. The Royals would definitely come in the closest of the three of them, although the Astros are right there, too. But, I think they've, in difference from the past when they've had good off seasons and kind of won the off season, they also have a really good young core behind them now. So, if there's injuries, which they're bound to be, as we saw last year with Tim Anderson and Moncada and Eloy a couple times, or if there's, subpar performance, which there's also bound to be along the way, you do have options behind these guys now, where in the past, you look at 16, where I believe for about 35 games, both the Cubs and Sox were in first place that year.
Yep.
Cubs went on to win the title. The Sox faded very quickly after the 2010 start. And they didn't have anything behind the front guys. So once there was injuries and subpar, and they knew this, and once there was injuries and subpar performances, they knew that was it. It was done, and it's different this year. So they have really addressed a lot of needs. I don't think they've added the top guy in the free agent market at every single spot, but I don't think you need to do that either. I think you need to look at the bigger picture fit. So I think the rose-colored glasses will say this is a perfect team, and they're gonna win many titles. And I think on the flip side, someone who's more negative will say, well, Keuchel hasn't been the same since his Cy Young year. Steve Cishek has pitched in 150 games in the last 2 years, and Encarnacion is 37. Yada yada yada. To me, I think it's right in the middle. I think they're in a good spot. They're in the spot they should be. They talked about contending in 20. I think they will contend in 20. Will they win anything? No one knows. You can predict all you want now, but let's wait and see what happens on March 26th on opening day when it starts getting for real.
Hey, Scott, good afternoon to you. Norm Marion here at WRLR and the Golden Sports Show. Hi, Scott. Bam, 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 bam. I agree with you on everything you've just said. And in saying that, I wanted 2 starters, I wanted a reliever, and I wanted some hitting, maybe 1 or 2 guys. Having said all that and seeing everything they've done in picking up Encarnacion and re-signing Abreu, basically a free agent, though people don't want to say it that way, he is. How do you feel about giving $50 million to a guy who has never played in the pros before? They did it last year. It turned out pretty well.
Well, first of all, I think you're talking about Robert in that sense,
Correct.
obviously. In terms of Abreu, yeah, I know he was a free agent, but I think there was a better chance of me getting a 10-day NBA contract than Abreu not coming back to the White Sox. It was just a matter of when, not if or how. He was coming back. With Robert, that's what this game is about now. In the past, it was more about paying for what guys had done, and now it's more about paying for what guys will do. And, we saw that with Eloy last year. And, he struggled at the beginning, but then kind of found himself once he got healthy at the end and had a great September. And I think, he's going to be a guy who hits 30 home runs by accident every year. And Robert is probably the most talented all-around prospect they have of a very, very deep group. So, yeah, I get it. And it's, it's cost control for possibly 8 years. Exactly what you have as you're moving forward. And, some of these guys, same with Tim Anderson for a while. I think his was $650 if you added in the options,
Right,
but when
right.
he agreed to his deal. So, exactly where there's no uncertainty as you're moving forward as you're building the team. They did a great job of clearing the payroll, which allowed them to spend as much as they did this offseason, will allow them to spend the next couple seasons, with guys dropping off the books. And some of these guys they've added are one-year guys with options. Cishek is a 1 year with an option when Encarnacion becomes official, which should be either today or tomorrow. He's 1 year with an option. So you have guys who, if they help this year get you to that kind of next step, which is near contention or in contention, that's great. And then you have guys behind them. You have, relievers like Zach Birdie and Tyler Johnson coming up from the minors, to name a couple. You have Andrew Vaughn, their top pick from last year, who is a first base DH guy and, should be ready at some point in 21, which if Encarnacion's not there, probably means that Abreu gets more DH time and Vaughn goes to first base. So they've structured it very well. But, yeah, I like what they did with Robert. I mean, again, what you pointed out is valid. It's, the highly positive, the not so positive. The highly positive is you signed this guy who put together just an unbelievably ridiculous minor league season last year. The numbers are just off the charts, although that's on the heels of an injury-riddled season that wasn't very good in 2018. I don't think he had a home run, as a matter of fact, in that entire season. So, you say, okay, we got this guy locked down. We got him bought out through arbitration years, et cetera. And on the flip side, you say, well, if this guy doesn't make it, if he's not good, then we gave a lot of money to someone who could be an average player. But from everyone you talk to, even if he's not an MVP guy every year, Luis Robert is going to be worth that money and be a good player on that roster every single year that he's here. Or, barring injury or something else unforeseen, he should be right there.
No doubt.
And Scott, something I have for you here. And one name I noticed that you didn't mention, I believe I didn't hear you mention, was Gio Gonzalez. And I'm wondering, is that something that you're not mentioning because he hasn't ever been able to play for the White Sox? Every time he's come up, it's never really played for the main team? Or is it something that you think he can get over the hump?
Yeah, I think myself, Scott Greger, and Bruce Levine, Scott Greger of the Daily Herald and Bruce Levine of the Score, are the only ones still covering the Sox now who covered the Sox when Gio was a draft pick and invited to spring training a couple times. No, I just didn't mention him because, he's another guy who's, 1 year with an option and considered more of a back-end type of starter. But, yeah, as you guys said, that's a good addition, too. You needed 2 starters. And, as I said, not everyone has to be Clayton Kershaw that you add or Chris Sale that you add. If Gio, has a good year and gives you 170, 180 innings and, has some good starts, has some not so good starts, but keeps you in games, that's all you need from him. They didn't sign Gio Gonzalez to be, the number one guy in the rotation. They signed him to be a competitive starter. And I think, to some extent, maybe a little bit higher because it's a little bit more money. It's not too much different of expectation for Dallas Keuchel. I would say right now, Giolito is still the number one guy in the rotation, if that even matters. I don't think it matters to the pitchers. You're the number one guy whatever day you pitch. But Gio's a great addition. I'm sure Gio's a different guy than when he was, here with the Sox last, was it 13 years ago or something like that?
Long
I think it was 03, 04.
Yeah.
And he was traded for Tommy. That's a pretty good feather in your cap. And then traded back for, I believe, for Freddie, right? And then went to Oakland for Nick Swisher, if I'm not mistaken. I think those are the 3 trades that he was involved in. So, yeah, I think he's a good – I think they're all good additions. They all make sense. Yasmani Grandal was great, and Encarnacion, and I think Mazzara is going to be a lot better than people think. So I think, again, without signaling out every one, what they built – the Sox built together in this offseason, the sum is greater than the individual parts.
Well, I really believe that too, Scott. Good points all the way around. And, picking up Grandal, he's an all-star. You already had an all-star in McCann. And with all the pitching, eating up a lot of innings is very important. You got to go through the whole season. And they have a staff that will at least do that. And you're right. They don't have to be Cy Young material. They have to be consistent. The Sox are going to score a lot of runs. And as long as their defense plays great, they're going to they're going to be really good. And I really like the way they're moving.
Yeah, I think the defense will be a key part. I think Robert, who's, who'll have a getting used to period, both defensively and offensively, is going to help. Although, you really don't have a void defensively in center. Adam Engel was a Gold Glove finalist there, I believe, 2 years ago. I think you need to figure out what you're doing at second base, whether that's, Danny Mendick for a short period of time, whether it's someone from outside the organization like a Brock Holt, whether it's Leori Garcia, who I think will be used more often, kind of splitting time with Nomar Mazzara in right field and maybe getting some starts in center field from time to time. And then, you eventually have Nick Madrigal coming up, who's going to be a Gold Glove caliber second baseman based on what he showed in the minors and throughout his collegiate career. So that, there's a big jump to make there. Excuse me. Moncada looks, a lot more comfortable at third than he did at second. And Tim Anderson makes some great plays and then commits some errors. I think he's got decent range. I think he knows when he needs to improve, and just look at his dedication last offseason where he hit 240 the year before, went into the offseason with then hitting coach Todd Steverson to work on his timing, change his approach a little bit, change his stance, and ends up leading all the majors with a 335 average.
Yeah.
So, I think his drive is there. But, yeah, the defense needs to get better. Dallas Keuchel is one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball. And if you don't have guys who can consistently field that behind him, then it doesn't do you a lot of good, right? It leads to probably a lot of unearned runs. But, yeah, I think they have some options, and I think they're definitely, as Rick Hahn has said this a number of times this offseason, they're definitely a better team. They're light years better team today than they were in that last game of the 2019 season.
Absolutely, Scott. And here's the last two things I have for you today. Again, Thank you for coming on. But the last two things I have for you, you're talking about how all of these players are making leaps and bounds, and the team keeps moving forward and keeps trying to get better and better and better. What can a guy like Timmy Anderson do? What can he do this year that he didn't do last year that may be something that can really vault the team, if anything?
Well, I think the thing with Tim is, you probably don't want to expect the same year he had last year because, hitting 335 every year is kind of reserved for the Tony Gwynns and the Ichiros of the world, right? And to go even further back than that, like a Rod Carew type of player. So, even if he hits 275, 280 this year, yeah, I think he's legitimately got a chance for a 30-30 season at some point in his career. I really do. He swiped a lot of bases early on last year and then kind of slowed down after his injury in that Boston game that sidelined him. What'd you say? Yeah, that sidelined him a little bit, and then I think he's got power to hit 30 home runs. So I think he can do that, and I think he just needs to get a little better, a little steadier defensively at shortstop.
Right.
So the last thing I have for you, and we have something for you, obviously. Norm, what was the game differential that we're looking at?
Well, the Twins were 28 games ahead last year, and the Sox are making a move. So obviously they're going to be better than last year, but I think Pat has the other question.
Well, yeah, no, I was just going to ask you, Scott, what exactly is your over-under if you're going to give on a win total for the White Sox this year? What is the over-under we're looking at?
Well, I think just them alone, I think somewhere in like the 83 to 87 range would be. So let's say like 85.5 or 84.5 would be a good over-under. I think you're still waiting to see, and I saw a quote just briefly from our great Indians writer Mandy Bell from Chris Antonetti today that they believe that Francisco Lindor is going to be the Indians' opening day shortstop. That obviously changed the division if Francisco Lindor and Mike Clevenger are not there. But right now, I think you go into the season and you look at the AL Central, and there are three good teams. There's the Twins who won 101 last year. There's the Indians, who I think won like 93 or 94 and fell short of the playoffs. And there's the Sox, who made a 10-win jump, but still only have 72 wins. So there's some growth for the Sox, a lot of ground to make up. And the Twins are going to have to come back a little bit, which might happen. So, but I think the difference this year is, everyone, kind of bagged on that division last year because there were two really good teams, two awful teams in the Sox. this year there should be 3 really solid teams in that division. And I like the Kansas City offensive players too. I think there's some good position players on that Kansas City team. They just don't have much pitching at this point.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing that a lot of teams seem to lack around the MLB right now. Some of the teams that are struggling to get to that median, it seems like starting pitching or bullpen is their main concern. Obviously, hitting for some, but mostly from what I see, starting and bullpen.
Yeah, that's a big. Detroit's got the pitching. That's the thing. Detroit's got the very young pitching. Detroit is just missing out on offense right now, whereas Kansas City is kind of the other way around.
Gotcha. Well, Scott, thank you so much again for coming on the show and giving a call in to us today.
Sure, no problem, guys. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Scott. Have a good day. That's MLB.com. White Sox beat writer Scott Merkin. I'm so glad he was able to call in. I'm so glad he was able to call in today. We have a few minutes to go, actually, before our break and before we get Kevin Boilard on the phone. He is talking NFL for CBS Sports Radio like I was talking about. So what I want to talk about a few things here, NBA, but mostly I did cover on the day that you filled in or you went solo last Wednesday, January 1st.
Not really solo. I had some guy on the phone with me, and then I had somebody at least say yes and no to me in the studio. So it wasn't really solo, Pat.
Well, there you go. Yes and no.
The guy on the phone, he was having fun out there, and I hope the Bulls was good.
It was very good.
I watched the game after talking to you. I thought that was great.
Yeah, the Windy City Bulls game was fantastic. It was actually so. What I did was I interviewed. I sat down real quick with the head coach, Coach Cotter. I sat down with the GM and the president of the organization, as well as player of the game, PJ Dozier. He was the player of the game last Wednesday. Of course, they have had a couple games since then, but the game that I did cover first and that I got the interviews for was Wednesday, January 1st. So the few things, I mean, they had the second game I covered, they did have people like Cristiano Felicio, who played for the Bulls and is coming down because they have a couple of people moving around. We also had Chandler Hutchinson playing in the second game that I did media for. So there's a couple great players to see. And then on the opposing side, actually, for the second game that I was watching and covering, I actually got to see, what's his name? Drago Bender. And he was crazy good for the Wisconsin Herd.
Okay.
Crazy good. Player of the game for them that game. They almost won by 20. They won by 17 points in that game over the Windy City Bulls. And he and Bender had an amazing outing. Threes here, threes there, and ones all night long. That's what he was getting. And that's what you could tell himself, Chandler Hutchinson, then for the Windy City Bulls, and Cristiano Felicio. You can tell when you have that NBA talent playing, you see it on the floor.
Well, you see it all the time. Even in, if you went to the IHL or the AHL or whatever, with the Rockford Ice Hogs being the Blackhawks subdivision team, and or the Chicago Wolves being the Blues subdivision team. Once they get someone who's in rehabilitation or they're trying to make their way up at a very young age. Not the standard guy that's 25 to 30, but you get that guy that's either younger or a little bit older and that's going to get back. You see the talent out there, and you see them just explode. And it sounds like he had a very big game for Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Now, the game that I covered was the Greensboro Swarm, the Hornets G League team against the Windy City Bulls at the Sears Center on
I like
January 1st.
The Swarm name. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, they didn't play like it. I'll tell you that much. The Swarm got dogged out there for about 3.5 quarters. So here's the first when I had to sit down real quick with Coach Cotter, and then I have in order, I believe it's the GM, the president, and then the player of the game, PJ Dozier from January 1st. We've got it all set for you. So, Coach Cotter, with the way that the team is performing right now in their record currently, what do you see for them going forward?
Well, you've got to put the record in context. 14 of those games have been on the road. So to have the record that we've had, I'm pretty happy. Like, every coach is going to sit there and tell you, we should have won this, we should have won that. That's part of it. But going forward, like, for us, the message, and we try and keep really disciplined as a staff. No matter what happens, we want to see individual growth and development. We've got that so far. we feel if we keep doing that the right way and we keep progressing, wins are going to be a byproduct of that.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Coach.
No problem.
Hey, Pat Voss here for 98.3 FM WRLR, the voice of Lake County, sitting in with the GM of the Windy City Bulls, Josh Krybick. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing?
Great. I just had one question for you, Josh. What is it that you look forward to most this season and the remainder of the season? What is it that you look forward to most out of the players or the front office? What is the positive that we can take away from this season?
I think every day we come to work and our guys, just whether it's our coaching staff, our medical staff, or our players, everybody's just looking to get better. And we've changed this season. We're about a mind of development and just want to get our guys better every day and do whatever it takes to help them become better basketball players, because at the end of the day, when we help them get better, they're going to be more capable to play at higher levels. We're going to win more games. We're going to do everything a lot better, and that's just kind of the mindset we take. We don't focus on wins and losses, but the process of every day of just trying to, work on guys' shots, or maybe we did defensive assignments, so they got to get cleaned up, all those other things. That's what we're trying to do every day, is just get the guys better, and, the scores will end up where they may, but, I feel confident in our guys, and I think we're going to improve from here going forward. We've been on the road for a ton this start of the season, and if I'm not mistaken, this is our 5th home game this year, and we're going to have opportunities to get our guys better going forward, because we're going to have a lot more time at home, and you're not dealing with travel every day and all the this, that, and the third, all the other distractions with travel delays and road practice facilities. You're at home, and we've set up an environment here for players to get better, and we're looking forward to doing it.
Thank you so much, Josh. Have a good game against Greensboro.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Pat Voss back again for 98.3 FM WRLR, the voice of Lake County. Sitting here with the president of the Windy City Bulls, Brad Seymour. Brad, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having us. We appreciate you being out here for the game.
I appreciate it. Covering my first game out here today, I really wanted to get down to the meat of this. What is it that is a positive note that you can give us about the front office for the Windy City Bulls right now that can really help moving forward to mold and shape this team moving forward?
Well, from my perspective on the business side, I'm concerned about really everything off the court. We work very closely, certainly with the Chicago basketball operations management team, and they put together this roster. And so far this year, we've been really happy with the players that we've gotten. It's a good group of guys. They seem to continue to be meshing, and then we also have this great relationship with the Denver Nuggets. So we get 2 of their two-way guys as well for the season. So that just puts better players around our players that we're trying to develop, and so we're excited about what we're seeing so far at the early stages of the season.
And speaking of two-way players, I noticed isn't it PJ Dozier, and you also have Bull?
Yes.
So now, what are the expectations from both of these players moving forward?
Well, from Denver's perspective, they have a very good relationship with Damian Cotter, our head coach, and so that's how that developed. They do not have a G League team, and so they sent them to us to continue their development, and so far it's been very well received. Both guys have meshed well with certainly our players, and it's really been, again, an addition of some great talent around our players that we're able to use to further their development. And so we've been happy with it. We hope that it continues to be a long-term relationship. That is until Denver eventually gets a G League team. But so far, so good. And certainly from PJ's perspective, he is a talent that is worth the price of admission. Really, really great player to watch.
I really appreciate it, Brad. Thank you, and good luck today against Greensboro.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's Pat Voss again from WRLR 98.3, the voice of Lake County, here with player of the game for the Windy City Bulls, number 15, PJ Dozier. PJ, great game tonight.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
And what is it that really worked for you? When was it clicking for you? When did you know that you were on fire tonight?
Just the first half. My teammates did a great job of being aggressive, and eventually that opened up the floor for me second half. So I just tried to take advantage of it.
And what are you looking forward to for the rest of this season? What is your main goal to accomplish to end out this year?
To get better every day, man. It's a new year, new decade, but it's the same mentality. Get better every day, take advantage of every opportunity that we get.
I appreciate it, PJ.
Appreciate you.
So that was it. I mean, that was my day, my first day covering the Windy City Bulls. That was January 1st, 2020. It was New Year's Day.
Well, I was watching some of that, and they seemed to be moving up the floor very well and pushing the ball up floor. Missing a lot of outside jumpers, though, and thus keeping the score down. But their defense looked well, and they seemed to be moving the ball on their offense pretty good. I just want a little bit more better percentage of shot and the ball into the hoop.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what any team would ask for. And I think with Windy City, the way that they're trying to, I don't know, move a lot of talent up into the NBA, I think the main thing they need to focus on is creating that outside shot and making it when you're open, for God's sakes. They were open, I believe I counted 15 different times in the first half, open threes, and they missed half of them.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to say to that. If you're a pro and if you're making money to make baskets, you should probably make baskets.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to move forward, and maybe that might be where you're going to stay.
Well, and that's the thing I worry about for a lot of these players is they have great potential coming out of either college or high school or wherever they're going over to the NBA G League and getting signed to the G League. I mean, that's fine, but I don't think they want to stay there, obviously. You have P.J. Dozier, who's showing great flashes. Obviously, Cristiano Felicio is already with the NBA roster, but they sent him down for a little while, for a couple games to fill in, along with Chandler Hutchinson. So you have these guys who have NBA potential, but I only named 3 names. And we're talking about a long roster of at least 15 people sitting on that bench, and you have at least 15 people sitting on the bench, and only 3 names are mentioned. That means someone's not stepping up either defensively or offensively. And actually, I take that back. Now, you can go ahead with yours, but I was going to say number 35 for Windy City, Milton Doyle, was defensively a monster. I can't believe I forgot his name. Absolute beast on the defensive side of the ball, and then came up big at the end of the game against the Swarm when the Windy City Bulls started giving away that game. He started knocking 3 down after 3 down after 3 down, and then was driving. And he's a skinny, small guy, and he was driving against the centers for Greensboro. So that was great to see.
Well, he had a nice end of the game that really helped out the Windy City Bulls, but I remember a guy who was really skinny, real thin, only played defense a lot. His name was Dennis Rodman. And I think he had a decent career. So he might not have put up the threes at the end of a ball game or whatever, but he took out the other players or the other team's main forward up front, and sometimes the main center up front, and let him have it. So that can always happen. We're talking about the Windy City Bulls here. In a way that, you want them to do well to move forward, but then I kind of worry about my pro team a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do too.
I don't want to cut out what the Windy City's doing, or like the Ice Hogs or the Chicago Wolves or whoever, but sometimes you got to get to the main piece of pie.
Yeah.
If anything else, and these guys have a chance, and they're pretty good ball players. Like I said, I was watching the game, but you got to put the ball down.
Well, yes, and that's the thing I worry about is that, the Wolves, I believe, are the Vegas Golden Knights farm team now, or AHL team. Okay. Right, and they used to have teams that were more local. They used to do more local. But then you have the Rockford Ice Hogs are AHL to the Blackhawks. Right. You have, of course, like all these different AAA on down for the Cubs and the White Sox and all those teams. And by the way, did you see that for MLB? I know we're getting off track here for a second, but for MLB, they're thinking about knocking out a single and double A ball clubs, so it will more than likely a few teams in the MLB will only have AAA ball clubs to go to. So if you can't cut it in AAA, you're pretty much out of baseball unless you're going to go overseas.
Well, five waves of major league players is really kind of crazy, and I can see how, the major market guys want to cut out the checks. Obviously, it happens in every business, and maybe 5 levels is too much. There's other sports teams that are babied by other things like college, where football and basketball get to go to college kids and have drafts. You're not giving these people a fair chance to get to the majors if they're only in Class 1A or 2A.
Yes.
If you only have a AAA team, maybe that's where we got to go with it. And maybe I don't know. I think sometimes in summer, the minor league baseball is a lot of fun. It's more fan-friendly sometimes.
Well, absolutely.
And it's cheaper, and it's easier for the family to get to.
It's a family event rather than let's play the high ticket prices and go ahead and steamroll everybody with high ticket prices with an MLB team. Let's go ahead and with a AA or AAA or even single A team. Those, like the Schaumburg Boomers right now out this way. Schaumburg Boomers are an average. They're an independent league team.
Independent, so they don't have any affiliation with the majors.
But they do average out. Their talent level is about a AA baseball.
Correct.
So that's great to see. And they've won 4 titles of their independent league already since coming into existence not all that long ago. So, I mean, watching teams like that is fantastic and interesting, but I think that, like you said, if we don't see improved talent on the main rosters of these teams, then what is a fan's interest in attending or watching?
And then we're going to see more independent teams as opposed, if they get rid of AA and AAA baseball, or I'm sorry, not AAA, AA and single A baseball, then those players got to go somewhere. So there's independent leagues, and now, you have a thing like the Chicago Hot Dogs coming up, the Chicago Dogs out in Rosemont.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
They have Zambrano pitching for them.
They got Zambrano. And if you have a mustard can as your mascot, you can't be all bad.
Not at all.
It's pretty fun. But, Carlos Zambrano, and the Dogs have a way to go as far as getting their piece of the market, but they're working at it, and it works in Rosemont.
Absolutely, and we'll be right back, actually. We're just hitting the bottom of the hour here. You're listening to the Golden Sports Show with Norm Marion, and I am Pat Voss. We're here on WRLR 98.3 FM, the voice of Lake County. We'll be right back with Kevin Boilard. He is he covers the NFL for CBS Sports. We'll be right back.
Having trouble moving the ball to finish your divorce or paternity matter? Child support or maintenance payments causing trouble with your salary cap? Sue Kamen is an experienced family law attorney who can coach you through mediation or fire a pass into the end zone at trial. To make an appointment in Antioch, Huntley, or Lake Zurich with Susan E. Kamen and Associates, their number is 847-847-7354.
WRLR is community radio.
I feel much more informed with what's happening today.
When we say community, we really mean it.
It's not like corporate, it's just a good station,
We don't belong to some large corporation that makes a profit from this station.
Because I like the diversity.
And listeners won't be forced to listen to large blocks of advertising. Operations at community radio stations are made possible through grants and underwriting from companies within this area of operation. And donations, funds, and equipment, services, and time from area residents who volunteer their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
Today's sports broadcast is made possible by O'Keefe, Lewis, and Bruno PC. Proud to sponsor another season of Lake County High School sports broadcasts on WRLR 98.3 FM. Helping home buyers, sellers, and others with real estate transactions. O'Keefe, Lewis, and Bruno PC can be reached at 847-675-4790.
When I'm under, I'm weightless, floating away, and all I think about is doing it again.
Michael Swan is under the influence of his volunteer swim coach. Spending a little time coaching, he helps Michael stay off drugs. Be a coach, a mentor, a volunteer. No matter what it is, you have something to offer. Log on to helpyourcommunity.org or call 877-KIDS-313 and be an influence on the kids in your community. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County, and this is the golden voice of the Golden Sports Show. Here with Norm Marion, and I'm Pat Voss. We are back. I can't believe it. We're already a half hour done. Segment gone.
Swam.
Absolutely. Now we're about to have in Kevin Boilard. He covers the NFL for CBS Sports. And then again at the top of the hour we have Robert Duran Jr. and at the bottom of the hour for the 3 o'clock hour we have Patricia Summerland, aka Sunny from Glow, joining us. So here we go. Kevin, how are you?
Doing great, Pat. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hi, Kev. Good to hear you. Norm Marion here on WRLR, the voice of Lake County. Kev, a lot of NFL football games coming up. A lot of people say the semifinals might be the best week in NFL football for the season. some people say it's just the 2 games for the conference championships. I like to go back to see a lot more players. What do you think?
I think this is a great weekend, but I don't know how you can top Wild Card weekend considering we had 2 overtime games last week. I'm really excited, though, about some of the matchups, particularly Tennessee versus Baltimore on Saturday night. That's a battle of 2 strengths. Both of those teams, running teams that want to jam it down your throat, and it's going to be interesting to see which team does it better. And then, of course, the quarterback battle on Sunday night between the Seahawks and the Packers. I think we were kind of, cheated of a great quarterback battle or potentially great quarterback battle between Russell Wilson and Carson Wentz, him going down 8 snaps in the last week's game. But this week we could get it against the Seahawks with Russell Wilson against Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing I'm looking forward to is great quarterback play and great quarterback matchups. That's one thing I thrive on as far as covering games or enjoying them as a fan. And like you said, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, I think personally Russell gets this done. I think even though that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers have had a great year, I think overall they find a way to screw this up down the stretch there at the end of the second half in order to give the Seahawks room to come through and sneak out a win.
Both of these teams have their weaknesses, it's sure. I don't think there's a lot of people picking either of these teams to go all the way from here.
Right.
I'm not saying either one of them couldn't do it. They certainly could. But the Seahawks going into Green Bay, at Lambeau, on the road, that's going to be tough. Even though they played well on the road this year, it's going to be tough for them to pull out that victory, especially the way they looked against the Eagles. It looked as though after Carson Wentz went down, they were just trying not to lose. They're going to have to make more plays against the Packers on the road in order to win this game. And the Seahawks are an interesting team in that every year, or at least the last couple of years, I've thought this team's going to bottom out. Their window has passed, and yet Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson get them to not just meet their potential, but exceed their potential. So Russell Wilson, I'll never count him out, but this is a Seahawks team that is definitely run first, and it's going to depend on the Packers' ability to stop the run.
It has been Russell Wilson's team for the last few years at least, and you never know what he's going to do behind the line of scrimmage. Adding Marshawn Lynch might be a good thing. I don't know if he's really fully game shaped yet, Kev, but running the football is their protege, and they could possibly make the upset. Aaron Rodgers even said at the beginning of the year that he had his defense there. I really don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I think that the Packers defense, if there's a thing they do best, it's get after the passer. That's led by the 2 Smiths, Preston and Zadarius Smith. And if it does come down to a quarterback battle, I like the Packers' advantage in that regard, but they're going to have to stop the run first. And the Seahawks banged up on the offensive line, obviously banged up at running back. They bring in Marshawn Lynch before the Week 17 matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. And so far he's shown that he's really not been much more than a goal line short yardage guy. At least that's where he's been most effective. They really haven't fed him the ball like old Marshawn Lynch. Last week, I believe he only had, barely 1 yard per carry, but he did get into the end zone. So each of the past 2 weeks, Marshawn has found the end zone, and that's valuable. That's certainly valuable, but Travis Homer has kind of been carrying the load for them at running back, and I use that term lightly because Russell Wilson was their leading rusher last week against the Eagles, and I just don't think that's going to fly against the Packers.
Well, I agree with you too, and I also think that rush the Seattle Seahawks tough. You still have the feet of Russell Wilson, and he can make plays happen. Very similar to Rodgers in a lot of ways, maybe with a little more quickness.
Yeah, I think he does, and it's interesting to watch Rodgers this year because he certainly struggled. The Packers' passing offense isn't what it usually is when Rodgers is healthy for a full season, and whether you want to pin that on Rodgers or pin that on the first-year head coach Matt LaFleur or some combination of the two, it's not quite there. And you've got this feeling in this potential that it could click, but it just hasn't yet. And it would be surely now is the best time if it's going to click, at home in the divisional round against a team like the Seahawks where you have some history against them. I'm sure that the Packers want to win this game badly especially if you remember the last time they met in the playoffs.
Sure.
Well, what about the Saints losing out to a non-call there in what was it, OT against the Vikings? Is this just a Saints curse going on now? Is that what we're going to start talking about in the media, or is it going to be they're going to pull through next year? Do they have a no? They're not good enough to have a goat. No, I'm just kidding. What is it? What is it that's following them?
I was really, really surprised that the Saints lost that game. In fact, the Saints were my pick before the season to win the Super Bowl. They were my pick before the playoffs started to win the Super Bowl. I thought they were a balanced team. Still maybe not quite as good statistically as they were the year before, but I thought they had good balance on defense, passing, and at times running the ball. And they really let me down. They were the first 13-win team to lose in the wild card round ever. So it was totally unheard of for them to lose that game to the Vikings. But I got to give credit to Kirk Cousins and to Dalvin Cook, that running back. And we've seen it in other teams with, Derrick Henry with the Titans. Having a good running back who can carry the load will take you beyond the wild card round. It worked for the Titans. It worked for the Vikings. And the Saints, they didn't have that running back that they could turn to. Alvin Kamara probably had the quietest 1,300-yard season from scrimmage, not rushing. That includes his receiving, that I can recall. Alvin Kamara was a bit of a disappointment for me this year, particularly in his lack of getting into the end zone.
Now, was that because of what he did last year? Is that why it's a disappointment, or is it because you genuinely thought, this could happen, or he's this caliber of player, and it just happened to not come to fruition?
I just think there were so many games in the first couple of seasons with Alvin Kamara that he made it look so easy. The way he runs, just as though he glides on air. And you're talking about, Saints offensive tackles that he was running behind that were Pro Bowl caliber. So why couldn't he get it going? Why couldn't he get into the end zone? I know they were doing different things and using Taysom Hill a bit more and stuff like that, but ultimately, I was a little let down. I think maybe the loss of Mark Ingram hurt them because Latavius Murray wasn't the same running back. And I have to admit, Alvin Kamara did get into the end zone in the playoff game, but I just was looking for that game for him to take over where he has, close to 200 yards from scrimmage. And it just really never happened this year, or at least not in a big game where you needed him to. In a game like this one where Drew Brees was struggling and was, he had an interception. He had a fumble lost in the fourth quarter. A 2-turnover game is so uncharacteristic for Drew Brees.
Right.
Those are the games that he needs his running back, his star running back, Alvin Kamara, to kind of step forward and be that bell cow and lead them to victory the way Dalvin Cook did for the Vikings.
We have NFL, an analyst to the max, Kev Boilard, right here on WRLR's Golden Sports Show. And Kev, I have to agree with you. The Drew Brees-led Saints were my pick to move a lot further in this playoffs, maybe even into the Super Bowl. I thought with Sean Payton leading the way and Drew being injured during the beginning of the year that it was going to be a tough season, but Payton was my pick for Coach of the Year by continuing to win and moving his team forward. Then he hit that Minnesota defense that just put up the wall, and Drew had a bad game. You could say, well, it's uncharacteristic of him, but he also, didn't perform up to the task, and you got to give credit to the Vikings defense. So now the defense of the Vikings move forward to San Francisco. Where do we go from there?
I think San Francisco is the more balanced team. I think they can do a little bit more. They've asserted their dominance on the ground all season. They're the number 2 rushing team after the Ravens. The Vikings are going to be hard-pressed. They're not going to be able to just come pin their ears back and get after Jimmy Garoppolo because they're going to have to stop a potent rushing attack first. And then when you flip it to the other side of the ball, San Francisco's defense is very, very good. Definitely a step up from New Orleans' defense, and that could spell trouble for Kirk Cousins, who I got to give him credit. It was really great to see him win that game, particularly in the fashions, throwing a game-winning touchdown in overtime. He's a great guy, and he's not a fun guy to make fun of when he loses, although it happens. So to see him get that win was huge. Right. However, I think his luck may run out in San Francisco this weekend.
Now, before we go over to AFC real quick, one thing I'd like to propose is I always love to play devil's advocate on this show, and I have to do it yet again. If for some reason and in some way, the Vikings beat the 49ers and go to the NFC Championship game to face the winner of Seahawks-Packers, what stands in their way?
Well, the Packers would stand in their way if the Packers had beaten the Seahawks, because the Packers went 2-0 against them
right.
this year. And so I know it's tough. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season, and we've seen in the past where that's gone that way. But I would give Minnesota, if they get past San Francisco, I would give them, as much a chance as anybody against either of those two teams.
Absolutely. And so for me, though, excuse me, trying to have Marshawn Lynch come back, and then the defense for Seattle, if they meet a team like the Vikings in the NFC title game, I think Seattle takes that whole thing by more than 2 touchdowns.
Well, it would be back in Minnesota, I think, right?
Again, I don't think the defense cares of Seattle. I don't think they're going to care.
Minnesota is the 6th seed, so Minnesota will not play any home games this playoff.
Okay.
And I will say, also, Minnesota, on top of the 2 losses they had to Green Bay, they also lost to Seattle this year. I will say, Seattle manages to rise above expectations. And I do think that they would be, very, very interested in a rematch with the San Francisco 49ers, the way that Week 17 game finished. However, to your point about him winning by 2 touchdowns, the Seahawks don't beat anybody by 2 touchdowns. If you go and look at the score of each of their games, every single one, win or loss, is razor thin. And in fact, this year, they set the record, or they tied the record for the most games won by just 1 score, 11, and that tied the record set by the 2015 Broncos, who went on to win the Super Bowl. So it's not like you got to win big to win it all. You just got to win at the end of the day.
Outstanding homework there. I didn't even figure that out, but 1 touchdown or less, and Seattle's in the game for sure. There are some times, though, Kev, where you just can't count out Aaron Rodgers. But all said and done, better defense this year. I'm not sure if the offense is that much better, but he is Aaron Rodgers.
He is Aaron Rodgers, and the guy behind him is Aaron Jones. And no one's really talking about this dude, but he's having an incredible season. I think he led the league in rushing touchdowns, and he's been an excellent threat out of the backfield.
Right.
So I would be looking for Aaron Jones, and if you're looking for Aaron Rodgers to find someone it's going to be him to Davante Adams. That's the key. Aaron Rodgers has never made good use of his tight ends, even though now he's got Jimmy Graham. This is the first time in his career Jimmy Graham has looked, below average, and some of the other receivers on the team are very, very fresh, very green, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Jake Kumaro. Those guys still have years before they're going to reach their full potential and their prime. So offensively, I'm looking for Aaron Jones to carry the load, Aaron Rodgers to make a few throws to Davante Adams, and then maybe sprinkle in Jamal Williams a little bit, and you got the recipe for success in Green Bay this weekend.
And Kevin, one thing I'm noticing is we're naming, obviously going through the NFC playoffs here and kind of working our way to what an NFC Super Bowl would look like, the NFC contender for the Super Bowl would look like. And it looks like pretty much you're contending that that San Fran will go all the way.
I think they're the best team. I think they're the most complete team in the NFC right now. And if I had to pick a team of those 4 that are still alive, yes, I'd pick them. I've got the least amount of faith in the Vikings. And then the Packers and the Seahawks are these 2 teams that they haven't really won me over yet, and yet they just keep finding ways to win, and so I can't ever count them out.
Ways to win.
Well, and that's the thing is, and now we're talking, when we talk like AFC, you talk about teams, and you were talking about potential and the caliber of the team, and we're talking about the Patriots being out of the playoffs in a wild card game. But of course, as I think I get this right, the Patriots have never, since Tom Brady's been quarterback, I don't think they've ever won a wild card game. I think they've
never advanced to the Super Bowl while playing in a wild card. They only make it to the Super Bowl if they get that first round bye. So a lot of Patriots fans were aware of that and realized that before the season, or before the playoffs started, after the season ended. We needed that first round bye, and we couldn't beat Miami in Week 17. That might be the writing on the wall that this season is already coming to a close. So that's the way it goes in New England.
And what did you see positively positive signs for the Titans? Obviously, getting that win, getting a 20-13 win over the Patriots in the AFC wildcard game. What is a positive that we can take away for these Titans?
Well, they play good defense, that's for sure. But the big glaring positive sign in neon lights lit up is Derrick Henry. He plays amazing down the stretch each of the seasons that he's been in the NFL. But now he's on a little bit of a playoff run, coming off a game where he carried the ball 34 times, also had a reception, went over 200 yards from scrimmage. He was the first player to ever have 200-plus yards from scrimmage against the Bill Belichick defense in the playoffs. So wow. Derrick Henry is an absolute ox, and he's tough to bring down. I don't think anyone wants to bring him down, regardless of what Earl Thomas is saying, oh, the Patriots didn't look like they wanted to tackle him. We're a little different. This is a Ravens team that rested its starters in Week 17. They were on a bye last weekend. I wouldn't be surprised. I definitely think they're the better team of the two, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come out a little flat, especially considering they've won 12 games in a row. They forget what it's even like to lose.
Yeah, I have a hard time with resting players and then having another bye 2 weeks. I get you don't want to be injured, but there's a thing for timing, there's a thing for possession, and there's a thing called playing head to head. And sometimes when you lose that, like you said, if the Ravens come out flat, Henry's going to put a pasting on him.
I really think so. And even more so than that, if they don't establish a rhythm early on offense, they struggle. We saw it early in the season against the Cleveland Browns, back when the Browns had Myles Garrett. And the Ravens never got in a rhythm, and that was one of their two losses this year. The other one being the Kansas City Chiefs game, where the Chiefs got out in front of them, and all of a sudden the Ravens had to change their offensive philosophy and approach. So I think that the Ravens better come out strong, because if they come out flat, it might be too late. Very early in the game, because the Titans could they play the same type of game as the Ravens, and they could be the ball control and the pound it on the ground team.
Well, the one thing I notice is if you're saying that the Ravens take it easy, and if they do take it easy and they look a little lax, and you have the Titans coming in and doing their thing, what are the chances if Ravens go down in this divisional round? Is that an easy 1-2 step for a high-flying offense like Kansas City to make it to the Super Bowl, or what are you looking at?
Well, if Kansas City were to, and that's a whole other. We mentioned Aaron Rodgers versus Russell Wilson, but how about Patrick Mahomes versus Deshaun Watson? Some days quarterback battles should be fantastic. And if Kansas City does go beyond that game, and let's say Baltimore falls and Tennessee wins, I think Tennessee, that will be such a shakeup in how they'll have to defend that team. They'll be, going from defending the Patriots and the Ravens, now all of a sudden you have to defend Patrick Mahomes. I would see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs advancing to the Super Bowl. And in fact, even though I had the Saints winning it, I had the Chiefs as the AFC team making it to the Super Bowl. So I could easily see the Chiefs going through Houston, going through the winner of Baltimore, Tennessee. I think the path would be a little easier if Tennessee wins that game and making it to the Super Bowl. But when I look at those four teams, the Chiefs are kind of the one that sticks out to me as probably the greatest Super Bowl contenders, and a lot of that has to do with their quarterback.
Now, what about, you said about the Titans, it'd be easier for the Chiefs, obviously, if the Titans are there in the AFC title game. But what if they do beat the Ravens? If the Titans beat the Ravens, now they've beaten, in a wild card game, they beat the Patriots at Gillette Stadium. They would then have to beat the Ravens in Baltimore, and they'd have to beat the Chiefs in Kansas City, all to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if the Titans somehow make this a playoff series to remember and make it all the way to the Super Bowl this year. I don't really, not that I don't care who the NFC contender would be, but it almost seems like that representative wouldn't matter, seeing as how the Titans have ripped through three of the best teams in the AFC on their way to a Super Bowl
like a team
appearance.
of destiny.
Absolutely, and that's kind of, I'm not saying anything to say anything, because if they go out and they lose by 24 points to the Ravens, then I guess I was wrong. But Kevin, what do you think the chances are for this underdog type of team to get through the rest of this tough AFC? Is there any chance?
Well, it's good to mention that they've beaten the Patriots. They haven't played the Ravens, but the Houston Texans and the Chiefs, they beat the Chiefs and they split with the Texans. So it's not like they can't or don't belong on the same field as any of these other teams in the AFC divisional round. So I think that if they do make it out of these AFC playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl, the story is going to be, one, Derrick Henry, but two, Mike Vrabel and the coaching job that he's done. And he could be maybe that next Belichick. We saw him use Belichick's own scheme against him, one that Belichick had used earlier in the year against the Jets to run out some clock late in the game, taking back-to-back penalties. And I would be surprised if that loophole isn't closed this offseason. But just the fact that Mike Vrabel is finding and noticing these loopholes, that's very Belichickian, and I wouldn't be surprised if he can pull something out like that. The only thing that really, and I know when you look at the statistics, Ryan Tannehill led the league in yards per attempt this year. He led the league in passer rating this year. Not who you would expect. But he did it on a team that was definitely run first. If, for whatever reason, they meet a team along the way that's able to stop Derrick Henry or at least just slow him down, and the ball is suddenly put in Ryan Tannehill's hands and he's asked to win them the game, I just don't think that's going to happen. This Titans team, if they go all the way, it's going to be on defense in the back of Derrick Henry.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kev, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Norm saying Happy New Year to you as well. One final note, though, Tannehill with Henry, that's running the football. You talked about Kansas City, and, of course, even in the NFC with Aaron Rodgers and stuff, the high-flying pass offense. As it comes down to, though, Super Bowls usually mean defense wins games, and outside of Atlanta losing to New England and letting New England come back and getting that win, and then the turf show time of the Rams, offense really hasn't won the Super Bowl per se, even though the points got put on the board.
You're right. And there's a few teams playing good defense. The Ravens have played good defense all year, as have the 49ers. The Chiefs have played very good defense as of late. We've talked about the Titans' defense. We know about the Vikings' defense. And the Packers have that ability to be game breakers on defense in terms of the pass rush. So I do think that defense, in some regard, will win the Super Bowl or win championships this year. It's just a matter of, will it be stifling lockdown defense or maybe the timely turnover, because there's multiple ways you can play defense.
Well, I like your attitude of running the football. It sounds like old-time football to me, and it looks like we have a big separate differential in the playoffs this year, which is awesome. The high-flying offense to the run-the-football defensive game of old.
Yeah, I love it too. And if you look at the yards per game, there's only one team left that were among the top 10 passing teams in yards per game. Meanwhile, 6 of the top 10 teams in rushing yards per game are still alive.
Amazing.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining the show today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Again, that's Kevin Boilard. He covers the NFL for NBC Sports. We're already at the top of the hour, guys. We're already through the first hour. We had Scott Merkin, the MLB.com White Sox beat writer, and now Kevin Boilard covering the NFL for CBS Sports here to wrap up the first hour.
Outstanding. Kevin really showing us that he knows his stuff because he's done his homework time and time again.
Absolutely. And here we have at the top of the hour, we're going to go to break here for 1 second or a couple minutes here on the Golden Sports Show on 98.3 FM WRLR, the voice of Lake County. I'm the Golden Voice of the Golden Sports Show here. Pat Voss sitting in with Norm Marion. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with, if we can get him on the phone, Robert Duran Jr., another Hands of Stone Jr. He is coming up here in just a few minutes. You're listening to 98.3.
Having trouble moving the ball to finish your divorce or paternity matter? Child support or maintenance payments causing trouble with your salary cap? Sue Kamen is an experienced family law attorney who can coach you through mediation or fire a pass into the end zone at trial. To make an appointment in Antioch, Huntley, or Lake Zurich with Susan E. Kamen and Associates, their number is 847-847-7354.
I can take care of myself. I can make a peanut butter sandwich. I can brush my teeth and I can give myself a bath. I can walk home alone from school. I can pick dinner from the trash behind the deli. I can watch the baby for the whole weekend. I can keep a baseball bat by my bed just in case there's trouble. Don't worry about me. I can take care of myself.
If you're in jail, who'll be there to take care of your family? Something to think about before committing a gun crime. Gun crimes hit home. This message brought to you by Project Safe Neighborhoods and the Ad Council.
WRLR is community radio.
I feel much more informed with what's happening today.
When we say community, we really mean it.
It's not like corporate, it's just a good station, yeah?
We don't belong to some large corporation that makes a profit from this station.
Because I like the diversity.
And listeners won't be forced to listen to large blocks of advertising. Operations at community radio stations are made possible through grants and underwriting from companies within this area of operation. And donations, funds, and equipment, services, and time from area residents who volunteer their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Pat Voss and Norm Marion sitting in for the Golden Sports Show every single Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here at 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County.
Afternoon, everyone. Norm saying hi and getting ready for another fast hour of sports right here on 98.3.
Absolutely. Now, we have joining us, we have Robert Duran Jr., He is a professional boxer.
He is.
Just like his father. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, and I'm glad that you freed up enough time, a few minutes with us today here on 98.3 FM. Robert, what is your record looking like nowadays?
Right now, I'm 4 wins, 1 loss, 2 knockouts.
2 knockouts, bam.
Beautiful. I really appreciate you again.
WRLR is community radio.
I feel much more informed with what's happening today.
When we say community, we really mean it.
It's not like corporate, it's just a good station, yeah?
We don't belong to some large corporation that makes a profit from this station.
Because I like the diversity.
And listeners won't be forced to listen to large blocks of advertising. Operations at community radio stations are made possible through grants and underwriting from companies within this area of operation. And donations, funds, and equipment, services, and time from area residents who volunteer their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Pat Voss and Norm Marion sitting in for the Golden Sports Show every single Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here at 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County.
Afternoon, everyone. Norm saying hi and getting ready for another fast hour of sports right here on 98.3.
Absolutely. Now, we have joining us, we have Robert Duran Jr., He is a professional boxer.
He is.
Just like his father. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, and I'm glad that you freed up enough time, a few minutes with us today here on 98.3 FM. Robert, what is your record looking like nowadays?
Right now, I'm 4 wins, 1 loss, 2 knockouts.
2 knockouts, bam.
Beautiful. I really appreciate you again for coming on here. And what take us through the regular preparation for yourself when you're going into a professional fight. What is the prep that you had? And by the way, congratulations on your most recent win overseas.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the prep like, Robert? What's the prep like when you're going into a fight?
So my training camp, man, consists of a lot of sparring and a lot of conditioning. You know, I'll always make sure that I prepare myself physically, in top shape, that I'm always in shape. I make sure I'm never out of shape. I always make sure I get my road work done. And then when I'm in the gym, mid work, bad work, and road work, always staying on top of my game regardless of what day it is, if I have a fight or not.
Absolutely. Now, when you have that strenuous, work in front of you, what is it that keeps you going? What is the one thought? Because I saw your most recent Facebook post, or one of your most recent posts, talking about you, in your words, you want to forge your own legacy. You are here to create your own legacy, and obviously everyone knows your father, Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone. They know the story there. But for yourself, what legacy are you looking to forge for yourself? What is it at the end of the day that you want them to say, the people to say about Robert Duran Jr.?
When people look at, father, son, boxing, I don't want them to see that I'm shadowing my father, that I'm taking over completely what my father did, you know what I mean? So my game plan is that at the end of the day, I'm keeping the Duran name alive, but I'm paving my own way. I'm doing my own thing. I'm not walking in his shoes. I'm walking in my shoes. So when I'm done with boxing, I want people to say, like, wow, Junior did his own thing. He kept the name alive. He stepped in the ring. He laced the gloves up, and he paved his own way. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm doing. That's what I call leaving my own mark.
Robert, you're awesome, and I really respect that a lot. Two things. Norm Marion talking with you, with Robert Duran Jr. here on WRLR. You're a stud. Your father was a stud. He had the Hands of Stone and the most unbelievable look. But I wouldn't put anything past you. You're huge. You got great arms, and you can punch very, very hard, and I wouldn't be in it. And you were talking about your road work earlier and stuff, and I like to run, and I think of it as a fun thing, going out maybe 10, 12 miles. And I know that's nothing along with your preparation into your fights each time you have to go out.
The jogging is simple. I don't jog excessively. I don't do 20 miles or something like that. I keep it simple, 5-6 miles, and then I add into that, sprints, uphill sprints, long football sprints, intervals, and that's the road work that I'm talking about.
Interesting.
With those sprints, because at the end of the day, I hate sprints, but you have to do them, because that's what keeps me conditioned for the fights.
Well, I'll tell you, Robert. I have a friend who also runs with me, and he told me, he goes, Norm, if you can't get outside, make sure that treadmill's at 7.0 on a 10-point scale, so you're going uphill, and that you're working your body really, really hard. You might not be able to do it too long, but you're going to die. And and you know what? He's right. So I can only feel what you're feeling right now.
Exactly.
What is the motivating factor, though? I know you're saying creating your own legacy, and you have, 4-1 record, 2 knockouts out of your 4 wins, and you're also, I believe, did it say on your page, 152-pound champ?
When I was in the amateurs.
Correct.
That's my amateur. Yeah, that's my amateur record.
And the fact that
my accomplishments those were my accomplishments when I was in the amateurs.
Absolutely, and it was a good record to have. It's good to get your amateur, I guess your pre-gaming out of the way as far as amateur goes, and then get up to what you're doing now. And only 1 loss, and I happened to watch on YouTube. I watched the loss. I went back and forth with it, and it just looked like maybe it was just a little bit of not spacing enough, in that loss. So it's not that you have never had it. It's not like even that loss wasn't close. It's that you've always been in your fights, and the fact that you are continuing to work your butt off to get as good as you can be, and to reach that pinnacle, and like you said, create your own legacy. That's something that I truly admire about someone like yourself.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, about that loss, though, that loss always going to sit with me. It's always in the back of my head because, there's people out there, with their negativity, man. They always give me crap about it. But then they don't really understand exactly what went on. They just see the record and say, "Oh, Junior, he's a bum. He's not good. He's not good. He lost to a guy who was 1-6," but don't really know the details. You know what I mean? The guy was coming down from 3 different weight classes. They brought him down from super middleweight.
Wow.
Because that's his natural weight, 168. They brought him down to 147. So the next day when he hydrated, when he hydrated the next day, me and him are in the ring. He's a lot taller, but yet he weighed 180 pounds. That's hydrated in the ring.
Wow.
So then I'm dealing with height, which is not really an issue, but then the weight, it is an issue when you're like 30, 40 pounds from what we weighed in at 147. You know what I mean? That's a lot.
Well, and I noticed. I notice when the fights come down the line and you have the media coverage and things from anywhere from amateur to professional. Norm, what do you have for him about media? Like what are we looking at nowadays?
Well, it's really tough. And then when he's ready to go into the ring with you, Robert, and he's so hydrated, that's a lot of bull to be pushing around in the ring for the next 10 rounds then after the fact.
Exactly.
I get it totally, and I can see how it makes a big difference later. You said that the height and the reach really didn't bother you so as much?
No, because, I've been, even from my amateur days, I've been fighting tall guys, Even at 147, you're always going to have tall guys. So, you always prepare yourself for tall guys. It's not an excuse for the tall guys, but the weight does play a factor big time. The weight does really matter because when you're number one, dealing with a tall guy is already stressful as it is. You got to work twice as hard, especially if he's a good fighter. If he's a good fighter and he's tall, he's going to keep you away, and then you got to work twice as hard to get inside and, let off your punches. But when you're dealing with that on top of 30, 40 pounds plus weight, and he's coming at you full blown, and you're just in the center just trading blows for 4 rounds straight, that gets tiring. Because now you got to hold his weight. You're forcing punches. You're throwing punches for 4 straight rounds. And the fact that he's leading, because he was a southpaw, so now he's leading with his head. And a lot of those headbutts were intentional. The grabbing, the aggression, and then the referee wasn't doing anything about it. So that whole 4-rounder became really, really tough, and it threw me off focus because I like to box.
Absolutely. And again, we're sitting here with Robert Duran Jr., professional boxer, and this is Norm Marion and Pat Voss sitting with you for the Golden Sports Show on 98.3 FM.
Hey, Robert, as we continue on talking about, the push and the shove and everything, the push and the shove from amateur to pro is also the big deal. Do you find yourself wanting to fight 2-3 times a year? Are you able to because of the media? And how does that attention distract from what you want to do?
Man, the media doesn't bother me. Cameras, people's, and it doesn't really bother me. Well, at the end of the day, I'm just focused, and all I want to do is just step in the ring as much as possible and build my record up as fast as possible. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So with that mentality there is just, I remove everything else out the way, and I know I got to go. I know I got a plan, and I got to stick to it. So that's how I just train my mind like that. I just keep focused.
And that's something that is great to do is knowing that you're going to have these possible distractions. You're going to have media. You're going to have the flashing lights around you. And is it because of family doing the same thing, or is it just you? Is it just something with Robert Duran Jr.? Is it just something in your genetics that says, I'm not going to shy away when the lights are on?
Nah, exactly. You can't shy away. Especially that's just with any fighter. You can't let distractions distract you, especially going into the ring fight night. Because once you get distracted, you lose focus, and then boom, your game plan goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might lose the fight because of that. So that's I look at that as part of training itself. It's like a training. You got to train your mind to not get distracted, with the lights, with the people. Because when you're in that ring, you got all these lights flashing, you got people screaming, so you got to zone that out like a horse. When a horse is racing, he's got tunnel vision. All he sees is just straight forward.
Absolute blinders.
Well, Robert, you have a lot of that, too, with the audience and with the media and with the fans and everything, too. But, your father was a boxer, your brother's a boxer, and you're moving on. And I know that extra pressure, a lot of boxers don't have that. It's bad enough just to be able to have to work really hard on your own and make something of your own.
Correct. I agree. Because growing up, I didn't grow up with my father, I grew up with my mom's side of the family.
Okay.
So when I turned professional, I knew that the pressure was going to be, heavy on me. A lot of people was going to give me a lot of crap about it because they're expecting me to perform like my father or something better than my father. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
I knew that was coming. I expected that. But then at the end of the day, it's like, all right, so I got to remain me. I got to make sure I do what I have to do.
Well, tell me, Robert, has it been hard? Or, since you've known that it was there, do you find it coming more and more, or just get off it and move on?
As in the loss, or
no, just the past, going to the present, not to the future.
The pressure.
Do you want to talk about the family anymore, or do you just want to move it on?
I don't mind going into a little bit of detail.
Okay.
Because my father, man, he was on the move with these fights.
Right.
He was in and out, in and out, in and out.
Right.
But growing up as a kid, a kid needs his father, regardless of the end of the day.
Oh, I know.
Regardless of what profession the father has, a kid needs his father. He needs to be there to raise him. You know how it goes. So growing up without my pops, that made me angry. And I took a different route than what the normal kid would take growing up. Well,
obviously you're going to have
Florida.
I'm sorry, Robert.
No, I moved from Florida to New York. I'm living with my grandparents. I'm by myself. I'm running the streets. And then, I got older. I got to a point where I'm like, damn, I don't want to keep doing this. I gotta figure something out. Well, so that's when my older sister from my dad's side, we finally got in contact together. Basically, boxing basically saved my life. I know we hear that from a lot of fighters, but that really did happen for me. That is really the truth.
Well, I'm glad it did, and I'm glad that you found something that really, turned things around for me. And I understand, from the family aspect, I understand the being angry early and what that can lead, if you're angry at family members, about how that, or them not being there, how that can lead to other situations. So, I'm definitely thankful that you were willing to share that with us. And I didn't mean to, dig too deep into it, obviously.
Oh, no problem. That's cool. Sometimes you got to sometimes you got to explain a little bit about the foundation so like that people can get a clear understanding of what really is going on,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving on then and moving forward, Robert, let's go on to your next fight. You talked about your loss being a guy that was a lefty. Is your next guy a lefty? What are you going to do?
Oh, no, my next guy is orthodox.
Okay.
He's a regular guy. My stance, my height, my weight, so I don't have to worry about, the excessive weight dealing with, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So going into this next fight, because for my I'm still in shape for my next fight. I never lost shape. After my London fight, I continued to train. I stayed in shape. I just add to my training. It's just like a booster, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So going into this fight, I'm double focused. I'm double ready.
Well,
I never look past my opponent. I never say, oh, it's not going to be nothing. You know, I always look at my opponent as, okay, my opponent's coming to fight, so I got to make sure I'm always ready to fight, regardless of who it is.
Well, and now your next fight is February 8th, February 8th in Albuquerque, yes?
Yes, sir. New Mexico.
Let's get it done then. Let's get that 5th win.
Oh, most definitely.
now it's still going to be a 4-round fight, yes?
It's supposed to be a 6, but one of the opponents that we were looking at, he had an undefeated record. You know, he was 2-0 with 2 knockouts. And we were trying to go for 6 rounds because I'm trying to move up to 6 rounds. So, but the guy didn't want to take the fight. So now we were in position to look for another opponent to see if he wants to take a 6-rounder, see if he wants to sign the contract as that. But hopefully we can get to 6 rounds. I move up to 6 rounds.
So from there, I mean, you're talking 6 rounds. What is it? Is it 8 rounds from there, and then 12, or how does that work?
You know, you move up and around, like, you know, you go from 4 to 6. You stay at 6, you know, a little bit. You build your experience with the 6-rounders. You know, you build your body's condition to last for 6 rounds, and then you move up. You know, you build your body's conditioning to last those rounds. So you build it in the gym. So for example, you know you're going to fight 4 rounds, correct? So you spar 6, 8 rounds in the gym. And that's how you build your conditioning up. So like that, when you're ready to move up, you can move up and you already have the conditioning built. So that's how you move up, step by step.
For a 12-round fight, and you say you're sitting at 147. So for 147, right. I mean, that's Mayweather and Pacquiao weight.
The 147 division, you know, that's...
Oh, absolutely.
One of the most competitive divisions that there is out there right now, 147.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is that those are 12-round fights, and you know, when you see Pacquiao going 12 rounds, you see Mayweather going 12 rounds. What is it that prep would go into, what kind of prep, rather, would go into a 12-round fight, since you're saying if you know you're fighting 4 rounds, you're doing 8 rounds of sparring. If it's 12 rounds, are you doing 24, or are you going like 15, 16?
Nah. You know, I haven't hit that mark yet, so I don't know what the preparation would be for a 12-round fight, because, you know, I haven't touched there yet. You know, I'll just prepare. I've just been preparing for my 6 and 8 rounders. But I can imagine that it's going to be, you know, on a different level, to last those 12 rounds in the ring, you know, throwing punches with somebody else nonstop.
So thinking about 12-round fights, and I know you say you wouldn't know the preparation for it right now because you're not at that point yet, but is it weird? Now, this is something I covered. I did a few interviews. Fight week, August 2017. Let me take you back a couple years. It was Mayweather against McGregor. Conor McGregor from the UFC took on Mayweather in that big money fight. And I actually interviewed Conor McGregor's coach, Coach Kavanaugh, the Monday prior to the fight, and we were talking about a few things, you know, how can he succeed in any way possible, and how does that, how do these kind of lights affect him versus, the MMA community that he's already known for. And here's the thing. The reason I'm bringing this up is to ask someone who has been in the fight game like yourself, in the boxing fight game, the sweet science, what did you feel about that kind of matchup happening on a national stage?
Between McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, I mean,
yes, sir.
It was just a hype. It was just a hype fight. You know, it was a money fight. You know, you got one of the biggest fighters in MMA against one of the biggest fighters in boxing. You know, they're talking crap to each other, and then everybody wants to see that. You know, like, yeah, make it happen. You know, everybody's so anxious, like, wow, what would happen? But at the end of the day, all it really was is a money fight. You know, it was a money fight because if you got McGregor coming into boxing, I hope people don't think that McGregor's going to really sit there and really box a professional fighter. You know, somebody who's been training for boxing his whole life. You know, it's hard to transition from MMA. When you have an MMA style of fighting, you know, you're used to kicking, elbows, you know, takedowns. You're used to doing all that. And then when you come to boxing, you're just going to use your hands. You know, it's really, really different, and it becomes uncomfortable because it immobilizes you from doing the normal things you're used to doing, you know? You know, that's why when McGregor, when you seen him fight, he would get tempting sometimes to grab him and hit him behind the head and do all these stuffs you won't see in boxing.
Yeah.
You know, he was like tempted doing that.
Yeah. Speaking of being comfortable, Robert, you know, are you comfortable at the 147? You know, you've boxed a little bit heavier. Do you want to move up? Would you rather move up as you extend your rounds?
I mean, me and my coach were talking about actually moving down to 140.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a power advantage, yes? Is that what you're looking for? Is a power striking advantage?
That, you know, and the height, you know, everything. There's a couple advantages. He was like, yo, Rob, I think you can make 140. You know, because sometimes when I'm cutting weight, you know, I can get down to 145, 144. So then my coach is like, yo, Rob, if you're cutting weight that low, you know, I think you can most definitely make 140 and you know, and fight at 140. So like that, you're comfortable. And then, you know, like you just said, you know, a power advantage and a height advantage, you know, you just be comfortable in there.
Well, being there, Robert, how do you feel? Do you like it at 140? Or are you ready for it yet?
I'm gonna give it a shot after this fight, after my February fight. I'm gonna give it like I told my coach, I'm like, all right, so after February 8th, what I'll do is we'll prepare for my next fight after that, you know, and we'll cut weight down to see how my body feels at, you know, 140. And depending on how I feel at 140, then we'll take it from there.
Well, and that's what I think is a good move for you, because I've seen your power and I see your shots going out. Even at 147, I see your shots doing damage. And I think that's sort of like, and I hate to make a comparison to the MMA community, but we were just talking about Conor McGregor versus Mayweather in a boxing ring, you know, the money fight. But in the octagon, that's what McGregor is known for, is the power shot, his left hand, and going down and hitting like a 155 or a 160-pound type guy and going down and demolishing the 145 division. I feel that you would have the same effect at 140 for boxing, rather.
That's funny. That's funny. That's exactly what my coach said. She's like, Rob, man, you're hitting wow, like almost a middleweight, man. You're hitting like a 154-pounder, 160-pounder. If you drop down one more weight class and stick with that power mill, you're gonna be knocking guys out left and right. You know, because I'm already huge for 147. You're like, Rob, you look big for 147. You don't even look like a natural 147. Well, and people tell me, Rob, you know, when they see my weigh-ins, they're like, Rob, what weight you fighting at? You fight at 154, 160? I'm like, no, I'm at 147. I'm like, there's no way. Well, and there's no way you make 147. And I'm like, yeah, for real, I do.
Well, and that's the thing, is when you have that muscle mass, but you're still fighting at 147, even if you have to do a weight cut to do so, if you're talking about cutting just another 7 pounds off, and I'm going to say just another 7 pounds like that's easy, but another 7 pounds off to fight at 140 eventually, I think that's something you're going to find that, and I think that we'll all be amazed as we watch you get knockout after knockout after knockout, and your career will continue to climb.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, after this February 8th fight, I'm gonna give it a shot. You know, I'm gonna cut down, you know, step by step, see how I feel. Because if I feel good at 140, oh man, it's over from there.
Wow, the discipline that you're about to describe to me, Robert, is just amazing. And thank you so much for being on with us today here on WRLR. Your dedication, your discipline, it looks like you're on your way, bro.
You know, I appreciate that, man. Thank you guys for having me and everything. But, you know, like I tell myself, you know, because having the background I have and the father that I have, you know, I have to train double time, you know. I have to work harder, twice as harder than the regular boxer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If I was a regular fighter, nobody would be paying attention to me. So I'll just have to train. You always got to train hard, but, I wouldn't have to work. I wouldn't have to push that extra mile, because I'm not coming in a ring with a big name and a big father, who did a lot in the boxing community. So coming in with that big name and everybody knowing who my father is, they're going to expect me to perform like him, or look like him, hit like him. You know what I mean?
Well, you seem like you have it.
Oh, thank you guys, man. I appreciate that.
Again, we're here with the Golden Sports Show, and you're listening to the Golden Sports Show, 98.3 FM, WRLR, the voice of Lake County. I'm Pat Voss, sitting in with Norm Marion, my co-host here today, and every Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, we are sitting in studio, and again, thank you again, Robert Duran Jr., professional boxer.
No problem.
Thank you so much for sticking around today.
You got it, partner. Thank you.
All right.
Much.
Have a good day, Robert.
You too, guys. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome. Great words. Really kind of a social issue there as well, Pat. And we could talk about that on another show. But
absolutely.
Some really cool things there from Robert Duran Jr.
Absolutely. Again, like Norm said, Robert Duran Jr., he is fighting again professionally on February 8th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's fighting at 147. He's fighting, that's a welterweight there. And then he is thinking about going down to 140 and becoming, and I don't want to use Hands of Stone because that's his father, but I would say most likely this will be a knockout artist you will see from now into the future after this 147 fight in February.
It's interesting to see the training to go down in weight. A lot of times people talk about, hey, this guy's young, he's going to get bigger. And now we see a guy who's established and getting a little smaller. He's going to be a knockout artist for sure.
Absolutely. And again, you're sitting in with Norm Marion. You're listening to Norm Marion and Pat Voss for the Golden Sports Show, 98.3 FM WRLR, the voice of Lake County, every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. When we come back, I'm going to try to go ahead and get her on the phone for you guys. It's Patricia Summerland, a.k.a. Sunny, from Glow, the gorgeous ladies of wrestling back in the 80s. This is going to be so much fun, so many stories to wrap up in just a half hour. Is going to be a hell of a time for us. Norm, we'll be back in just a minute, and this is 98.3.
Cornicchione's New York-style pizzeria in Antioch at routes 83 and 173 is another proud sponsor of WRLR Sports. Cornicchione's pizza dough is made from scratch using a family recipe that originated in Brooklyn, New York. Their dough is proofed at least 24 hours. Cornicchione's menu includes pizzas, calzones, pasta, much more. They have dine-in, carry-out, and delivery. Their number is 224-308-1499.
Want to fight childhood asthma? Then fight it with a scrub brush and a hot soapy towel. Even in the neatest and tidiest homes, if there's so much as a crumb to eat or a drop to drink, household pests like bugs and mice will do all that they can to get it. Creepy crawlies like bugs and mice are unpleasant enough as it is, but they're more than just a nuisance for kids with asthma because they can actually trigger an asthma attack. So give them a whole lot of nothing. Sweep up crumbs, wipe down tables, scrub dishes before they pile up in the sink, and store leftovers in plastic bags or bowls. Don't leave them so much as one tidbit or nibble, and you can stop a childhood asthma attack before it starts. Discover other simple ways to prevent an asthma attack. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS or visit noattacks.org, because no child should feel like a fish out of water. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
WRLR sports programming is made possible in part through the support of Jersey Mike's in Round Lake Beach. Jersey Mike's serves authentic Northeastern-style sub sandwiches that are fresh sliced and fresh grilled. Their menu offers items for students and teachers like the Giant Sub. Complete menu details available now at jerseymikes.com. If your sports team or organization is looking to raise funds, Jersey Mike's in Round Lake Beach can tell you how. They're located at 536 East Rollins Road, and their number is 224-757-5391.
WRLR is community radio.
I feel much more informed with what's happening today.
When we say community, we really mean it.
It's not like corporate, and it's just a good station, yeah?
We don't belong to some large corporation that makes a profit from this station.
Because I like the diversity.
And listeners won't be forced to listen to large blocks of advertising. Operations at community radio stations are made possible through grants and underwriting from companies within this area of operation, and donations, funds, and equipment, services, and time from area residents. fans who volunteer their time to get involved.
It's as if it's my next door neighbor talking to me, only he's on the radio instead of next door to me.
Real people just like you.
I like them. They tell it like it is.
Local focus, local news, local music, of the local people, and by the local people.
It's different than the rest of the stuff I hear.
I love the show. I listen every day.
WRLR.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
And this is the Golden Sports Show right here on 98.3 FM. I'm Norm Marion, sitting in with our host, Pat Voss, right here on WRLR. Hope you're having a great Wednesday afternoon. Sports all over the place, all over the country, all over the world, right here on 98.3. Wednesday afternoons from 2 to 4. And we have exciting sports action for you all week long right here on WRLR. Of course, we have, Friday night at 7 p.m. High school basketball. The tournament will begin as we continue on to the Martin Luther King tournament next week. And we'll have all the exciting action for you in girls and guys high school basketball play continuing on at the local level. On the major sports scene, of course, we talked about the White Sox getting better. A great talk with Kev Boylan of the NFL issues here on WRLR. And then, of course, we might be coming up with hockey in just a few moments, talking about the Blackhawks and more as the playoffs get closer as we head to the All-Star break in the U.S. Many, many things happening here on WRLR. Pat's trying to get a hold of our Glow aficionado. Sonny's going to be with us, and that's going to be fun. And we're going to have a real good time. And boom! As soon as I say that, he walks through the door. Imagine that.
What's up, Norm?
Hi, Pat. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Again, you're listening to WRLR 98.3 FM, the voice of Lake County. This is the Golden Sports Show. Norm, Marion, Pat Voss. We actually have a change of plans here. We do have our scheduled guest for 3:30. It's Patricia Summerland, a.k.a. Sunny from Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Woo!
Patricia, how are you?
I'm good. Just taking some time out of my busy day here, trying to stay busy, of course.
Absolutely.
Keep my mind off that surgery that's coming up.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well,
So, but I'm glad to be on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Patricia. And again, your days with Glow, what is that like when someone asks you? And I've seen plenty of your interviews, obviously. But what is that like?
Oh boy! I mean, it was a great time. As we know, the '80s rocked. I don't think
all the way through, baby.
TV, right? TV, sports, music, '80s was the era, and I was blessed to be a part of a television show that was national and now international, because we're playing, I understand, in different parts of India, other third world countries, which is kind of cool that they love wrestling so much. But '80s and Glow were awesome to me. I had a great time, and I was blessed to do this show. To get casted for the show was quite grueling, because you had to go through military training. You had to be somewhat of an athlete, which thank God I was. I had an athletic background, but some of the girls did not. So kind of felt sorry for those girls. Yeah, I'd say it was pretty tough. Matt Simber, the director of Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, he's brilliant. And a shout out to Matt Simber. If it wasn't for him, there would be no Glow, and there would be no Glow Netflix or no Afterglow. So I've got to get my hat off to him. He's a brilliant director, and he's done many, many films and was married to Jane Mansfield. And that's how I got my character. He said that I reminded him of his ex-wife.
Wow.
And at that time, I had no clue until he had mentioned Jane Mansfield. And I'm like, isn't that Marilyn Monroe's best friend? That's exactly what I said. And here I am, 20. So, and I go, isn't she like really, like well-developed, and she's not very tall? Because I'm tall. And he goes, no, she actually looks a lot like you, body-wise and everything. So the molding of Sunny was the blonde, dingy bombshell. So that's how I got my character of Sunny, the California girl. I was blonde and tan and loved life. I sang previous that, and also was, like I said, was very athletic. I taught sports and taught aerobics and all that kind of stuff, and roller skate and surfing at the beach. So he incorporated the singing with my knock-knock joke. So when I come out to the ring, I sing a knock-knock joke, which I'm like, I still to this day don't know how I did that. I'm like, oh my God, I have to sing a knock-knock joke? So, yeah, it was pretty incredible. And there were so many role models because we were all sizes, shapes, and colors for women that they can relate to back in that day. They could, or men, I should say, men and women, would actually love our characters and get into each character and go, wow, that character's really cool. I feel like that character. You know what I mean? So I thought it was really brilliantly done. And I like to see more of that come back in this wrestling that we have now, which a little bit of it is, I think. The women have definitely came full circle.
Well, good. And I was going to ask you about that, but before we move forward, am I on speaker?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm on my cell phone. So
okay. Is there any way to take me off a speaker for a second?
Let's see here. Is that better?
Yes. All right. There we go. There we go. So again, we're in studio, or we're in studio. Norm and I are in studio for the Golden Sports Show here on 98.3 FM. Sitting in with Patricia Summerland, a.k.a. Sunny from Glow. And Patricia, now looking at the wrestlers now, especially the women's division now, I'm so glad they did away with the title of Divas title, and it's the women's championship. I love that change. Back over to that. What do you think of the women's division now, and are there negatives and positives that you can take from this, and what can they improve upon?
I think that it's grown a lot because I used to critique SmackDown every Friday. I had a show called AfterBuzz TV with Rick Drayson. Mm-hmm. So we had to watch SmackDown every Friday, whether we liked it or not, and we had to watch every match, men and women. I think what has happened now currently is with the women, they're coming in stronger. There's different body types now. It's not all the TNA mush, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And I think they're selling the moves, which is really important, and to tell the story. Those are the things in wrestling they must do. And they were moving way too fast, just like the men, way too fast. It's like slow down with these moves. Make it look real. Did I say that right? Make it look real. Because you have to. When they're watching from the outside, you want to watch a good match. You don't want to go, oh, my God, look at that. Oh, that didn't even touch. Or that shouldn't have hurt. And he's selling it like it hurt. Wait a minute. So it's got to be exactly a good sell, a good story, and watch the moves and slow down and sell that move.
Well, you hit a lot of things on the head. I'm sorry, Sonny. Norm Marion here on WRLR. You got me so excited talking about wrestling that I'm jumping on you, and I apologize for that. But through the 80s, obviously, you were there and making things happen. And now, as you said, women are bigger, stronger, faster. Does that kind of hurt the move being slower, or does it help it?
No. Oh, it's helping it. Yeah, the women have made their own way. I mean, look at all the divisions now. Look what they're... honestly, I think it's saturated. Mm-hmm. I will say that. There's so many now. You know, AEW, this one, that one. WWE's got like 3 or 4 divisions. There's just so much out there right now, from WOW to POW to... I can't even name them all. There's so many, right? I mean, so which one are you going to tune in to really want to watch? And who are you going to appreciate in these moves? You know, Chris Jericho, of course, #1 heel right now. But
obviously,
to me, I love Chris Jericho. But
I love Fozzy.
It was just, I love Fozzy. There you go.
I'm sorry.
If anything, that's what I told Roxy Astor, one of my other fellow Will girls. We had a discussion about it the other night. She goes, "Did you see the way he looked?" I go, "I honestly didn't watch it." I go, "I can't." And she goes, "He's out of shape. He's really got a big gut." And I go, "Well, he's better at singing. I love the band." so you know, hey, but he's still got it, and I give it to him to get in the ring, you know, because we're all older. If I was to do that, I wouldn't do any high flying maneuvers because I still get in the ring, and you know, it stays with you. It's just like riding a bike. Those days will always be with us. Once a wrestler, always a wrestler.
Well,
but I'm not going to go flying off the 3rd turnbuckle and do any flips right now at my age. Oh, heck no. No, I don't feel like dying.
Well, and that's the thing that's nice. So at Comic-Con here in Chicagoland this last August, I actually got to meet like Tori Wilson, Lillian Garcia, and who, I forget what her real name is, but she played Victoria back in WWE. And she was the crazed women's champion that wouldn't let her belt go and was hanging around Steven Richards. And she had that attitude about her and that demeanor about her. And she played the heel Victoria back in the day, and when I say my day, obviously watching like the Attitude Era, that was unfortunately my day. But meeting people like her in person and talking to you and realizing that, as a fan, you get so wrapped up sometimes in who's a heel, who's a babyface, what have you.
Right.
But then meeting some of you in person and loving every minute of the conversation and it having nothing to do with your actual character that you portrayed on TV is fantastic to me, and I love that. I love that aspect about sports entertainment.
Oh, yes, exactly. And then when people meet me now, they're just like shocked. They're like, wait a minute, you're Sunny? I go, yeah, that's me. Well, where's your blonde hair? You're a brunette now. And I'm like, well, 32 years later, let me tell you, guys, this is my natural color. And they're like, what? You mean you weren't really that blonde back then? I go, no, sorry.
You're telling me those weren't real?
Really?
Anyways, yeah, a lot of... A lot of women nowadays, and even in the Attitude Era Attitude Era when I was watching, you had Trish Stratus, you had Sable, you had a few of the females that were wrestling then, and then you have yourself wrestling in the original for that, and that is Glow. So to be doing that, and having some of the women doing different things like extracurricular activities as far as, Playboy or other things going on. What is one thing that you have done that let me ask it like this. What is one thing that you've done outside of wrestling that, you may have regretted doing, if there are any regrets? And number two is, what is the most fantastic thing you've ever done outside of wrestling?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I mean, honestly, guys, I've been blessed besides Glow. So right after Glow, I ended up becoming an NFL poster girl where I represented 4 strong teams. And they're my teams, and nobody has to like them, but I do because I stand by my teams, which is the Rams, Raiders, New England Patriots, and the Miami Dolphins. So from 1988, the Dolphins were pretty hot.
Yep.
So, so I represented those 4 teams, and they did the tight end poster. I don't know if you guys remember that tight end poster. Well, that was me, and that went out nationwide in all the warehouses and Music Plus stores. There's a time. I'm not dating myself right now because they're not around anymore.
No, they're not.
The good old days of posters even aren't really around. But, yeah, so I did that, and then I went on to actually run the Olympic torch.
Oh, that's awesome.
With John Voight and many other greats, which was pretty honorable. So I was the only female wrestler to be an honoree and stand up and actually host the opening ceremonies. And then I went on to, to do a major motion picture. I had the lead called Season of the Sun, which was a spinoff from The Field of Dreams.
Okay.
And I played the role of Erin Henderson, Texan girl who was in love with a Los Angeles baseball player. So the Stars teams in Las Vegas, the AAA team, was Stars for the San Diego Padres.
Sure.
So that's where we rehearsed and started. And, we actually, I should say it started, but it ended. It was a long story there, which will be in my book and movie, which was the manager of myself, Maxwell Carson. His name is really William Wood, which was one of 10 America's Most Wanted. That was my own manager.
Wow.
So the rest of the story will be out there soon because people ask me whatever happened to the movie. Well, he was a criminal, and like I said, 10 America's Most Wanted. And I'm just stepping out of that story because I don't want to go into it because I want you all to buy the book.
Absolutely. What a teaser for that.
What happened to the rise of fame with Patricia Summerland and the story that's behind that. So from there on, I was blessed to do, I would say 10 years later after Glow had ended, I did Playboy. I casted one of the greatest issues to this day and will continue on being one of the greatest because of Kiss, the band Kiss with Gene Simmons, graced the cover, the very first time of a male rock star on the cover of Playboy, number one. And number two, there's great articles, and I'm not just saying that, ha, 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 in this book and interviews of Drew Carey. All the talk show hosts are in there. We've got Lauryn Hill, some great in-depth interviews. Yeah, the Beastie Boys. And then, of course, myself, I get to be Ace Frehley and Paul Stanley.
Of course. Wow.
In the issue. So, and it was a cool issue. So I'm very honored. And that Playboy will live on forever because the guys are now retiring this year. This will be it for them. They're on the last farewell tour.
Okay, so they say, Patricia. So they say. I want to push you back. I know, because you know how that goes with farewell tours. But I want to push you back just a little bit. Do you remember your rap song?
Oh gosh. Well, I remember.
Or any parts of it, maybe?
Why do you have to do it to her? Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Everybody does that to me because I usually forget them all. And I've got about 8 or 9. But I can actually do the Gorgeous Slaves of Wrestling rap as well, if you'd like.
Yes, that'd be awesome. Please do.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're hearing this on 98.3 FM, WRLR. Go ahead.
There we go. We're the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. We're all champions in the ring. We come from the streets. We come from the city. We come from a world where there is no pity. Slam, bam, it's a wrestling jam. Come on, ladies, give us a hand. It's a big, bad battle in the ring. We're going to have fun and do our own thing. Ta-da! There you go.
Absolutely.
I love your own thing. Right? Go ahead there, Pat.
That was fantastic. I'm glad we got that on recording for the station. And again, we're not done yet, but thank you again. I wanted to thank you for coming on, Patricia.
This is awesome.
Absolutely. I know finally we connect, and I'm glad I could do this.
Now, there's one more thing that we want to kind of wrap up for today, and we'll go right into commercial break with this. But what we want to ask you is, with Glow, the series on Netflix, how much of that really, I mean, as a starter question, how much of that really are they getting right? You know, what is it that they're getting right, and what is of it is embellished, you know, obviously for TV? What are we looking at there?
Yeah, you can. Honestly, I've watched the first, second, and third season of the Glow Netflix, and it seems that the only thing that is close was the wrestling, which is in the third season. Everything else did not happen. There was no drugs. There was no robot that would bring us drugs. You know, the apartments were different. I would say when the girls came together, that was kind of what it was in Glow, but that's it. The characters are not us. They've meshed 3 or 4 characters into one.
Okay.
Because there's a story with that. You know, one of the Glow girls had sold the script to them and sold all of us out. Because everyone asked, how come we're not in it? And how come we don't have cameos? Because we're the stars of Glow, and they're doing this about us. Well, I guess they didn't want to pay us all. There's 60 of us Glow girls from 4 seasons.
Okay.
So rather than doing that, they just kind of forgot us all. And for that, they can't get our stories, can they? So when we're watching that show, we just remove ourselves and just enjoy the show as it is and how they think they have it.
But you like the moves in the ring then, though, Patricia?
Do I what?
Do you like the moves in the ring that's on the show? You said that the wrestling is the main thing that you kind of like from it.
Wrestling is good. Yeah, they got that right finally because there was no wrestling up until the 3rd season. And the 4th season, ironically, that's it for the Glow Netflix. Imagine that, because with us, we only had 4 seasons, and then Glow ended. And again, it goes back to the same individual that I'm speaking of that sold all of us girls out. The reason why Glow ended is because she had an affair with the owner of Glow. And the threat was made if she doesn't leave. The wife was Pia Zadora.
Okay.
Did I mention that? Pia Zadora. Meshulam Rickless, rest his soul, he's passed on, but he owned us Glow Girls. He owned Fabergé Brut, the Riviera Hotel, and Well, yeah, long story short, there was a girl that looked similar to Pia that was a Glow girl that he had an affair with. So the ending of Glow was not pretty. We were supposed to go on and have a movie and da-da-da-da-da. I returned and it was gone.
Oh, boy.
It's over. Ended. So, yeah, we're happy that it's there because it brings awareness to us original Glow girls like the millennials that perhaps don't know that we were around in the 80s or watching Glow Netflix now can identify with us original Glow girls. So it's only helping us.
So the girls nowadays, they can actually see that, yeah, there was a place, there was a female in the front of this series of athletics and wrestling and in show and in entertainment sports. And you guys really the forefront after, in the major networks, let's say, and when television really was booming after the 60s. It was you guys that were the female forefront.
Right. Yes, we paved the way for, as we say, the divas then, because it was after us. And, we paved the way for what it is today for all the female wrestlers. And we were honored. I actually got all of us girls honored at the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in Las Vegas that happens once a year, every year. In 2017, I brought 23 girls into Las Vegas to be honored. And we were honored as the first female wrestling group at the Cauliflower Alley Club. So that was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
I butt off for that one.
Well, what else do you think, like, what's in the future? Obviously, you mentioned a book and a movie. What's in the future for Patricia Summerland?
I do have a book out, a 3-series book by Sunbury Publishing, and Scott Stevens, a great author who is going to be putting my book together for my story. And he said, you've got so much, it just can't be one book. So we're going to break it up into 3-book series, and I'm pretty darn excited about that. And that will start here soon. So look for that in 2021.
2021.
And then a movie from that, yes.
Beautiful. So past
it is
that,
an autobiography, so it's real life, autobiography. If anybody wants to know, it's not fiction.
Very raw,
And
if you're going to say that, yes.
Right? Yeah. Oh, it's going to be. But Scott Stevens is a great author, and he does fiction as well as I believe he did an autobiography with Joe Abel, who's also in the wrestling business, and he's doing one with Brian Blair. So
nice.
It's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Well, we definitely look forward to seeing that in 2021, and of course the movie coming off of that as well for your book. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a show too. Sorry, guys. That's most importantly, I got to put out there that you guys can listen and watch me every Saturday, except for the next couple Saturdays because after my surgery I have some downtime. But I will be back and resume February, somewhere in February, Saturday. We'll just say the Brighter Side with Sunny show with CRN Digital Talk Radio on 250 terrestrial stations, iHeart, and Sirius Radio.
Awesome.
And then I also have
it's like she's reading my mind.
Adversaries. I'm on. Yeah, I'm on every Sunday, American Adversaries at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can hear me on there talking some politics and late breaking news.
Absolutely. And Patricia, like I said, it's like you read my freaking mind. I was actually about to ask you as we were wrapping up. I was going to say, so for those of you that out here and listeners of 98.3 FM, Patricia, where can people find you and what do you have going on right now? That was my next line and you took it right away. So I really appreciate you plugging that out there for us.
And thank you so much for Patricia for being on the show.
Absolutely. And you can find me anywhere on social media. I actually, speak to my fans under Patricia Summerland Chambers, and people ask me why the Chambers, because that's another part of my life story. I was handed over at birth, and I was Chambers for 18 years, not legally, but that was my last name. So for some of my relatives, I went back so they can find me under Chambers as well. Summerland is my birth name. So there you go on there. But you can find me, Patricia Summerland, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, all the social media platforms. Find me and I'll talk to you because I love my fans. I'm so appreciative because without you guys, we wouldn't be anything. I have a surgery coming up on the 14th, some prayers, some shout outs that I'll recover from that and everything is good and no lymphoma. That's what we don't want.
We'll be with you, hon.
And some recovery, some downtime from there, but I'll be back in action for sure.
I really appreciate it, Patricia. And again, we're speaking here on the Golden Sports Show every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Myself, Pat Voss, and Norm Marion sitting in the studio here with you today. We're sitting with Patricia Summerland, a.k.a. Sunny from Glow. She named all the places you can go find her. And again, if you're listening to the replay on YouTube, on my YouTube, Patrick M. Voss, or on the 98.3 FM WRLR YouTube, along with Facebook. And you can catch us at WRLR 98.3 FM on Twitter and Instagram as well. I will have links to all this in today's show. And, of course, Patricia's segment here as well today. Patricia, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. And I also, one thing I did mention, or forgot to mention, I should say, the Afterglow Cruise. If you would like to cruise with us, Original Glow Girls, that is April 12th through the 19th. You can go to the afterglowcruise.com site and sign up and cruise with us to the Mexican Riviera on Norwegian Joy Cruise Line.
I may have to sign up for that. I may have to miss that show for that week.
All righty then.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patricia.
Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. That's Patricia Summerland, a.k.a. Sunny from Glow, joining us.
Outstanding, and I wish her well, and my prayers are with her, and I'm sure everyone out there listening is going to be pulling for her in this next surgery coming up, and then we'll see more of her in the new year.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to thank our call-in guest today, Scott Merkin, MLB.com White Sox beat writer, Kevin Boilard. He is an NFL. He covers the NFL for CBS Sports. We had Robert Duran Jr., professional boxer, come in at 3 o'clock, and of course, we just finished up and wrapped up with Patricia Summerland, aka Sunny Glow. Great show. I will try my best, guys, to have a good show set up for you, call-in guest set up for you next week as myself and Norm set back up. That is next Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time every Wednesday here on 98.3 FM WRLR, the voice of Lake County. There you're listening to the Golden Sports Show. Pat Voss and Norm Marion. We'll see you next week.
Having trouble moving the ball to finish your divorce or paternity matter? Child support or maintenance payments causing trouble with your salary cap? Sue Kamen is an experienced family law attorney who can coach you through mediation or fire a pass into the end zone at trial. To make an appointment in Antioch, Huntley, or Lake Zurich with Susan E. Kamen and Associates, their number is 847-847-7354.
Since Comcast came into the Lake McHenry County area as the primary source for cable TV, they've shown themselves to be one of the most community-minded companies around. They've graciously provided our studio facilities with cable TV services so we may monitor national news, and CHSI high-speed internet service so we may stream our broadcast signal via the web to increase our coverage area to include a global audience. For more information on basic cable, digital cable, or high-speed internet cable services, their website is www.comcast.com.
Cornicchione's New York-style pizzeria in Antioch at routes 83 and 173 is another proud sponsor of WRLR Sports. Cornicchione's pizza dough is made from scratch using a family recipe that originated in Brooklyn, New York. Their dough is proofed at least 24 hours. Cornicchione's menu includes pizzas, calzones, pasta, much more. They have dine-in, carry-out, and delivery. Their number is 224-308-1499.
WRLR sports programming is made possible in part through the support of Jersey Mike's in Round Lake Beach. Jersey Mike serves authentic Northeastern-style sub sandwiches that are fresh sliced and fresh grilled. Their menu offers items for students and teachers like the Giant Sub. Complete menu details available now at jerseymikes.com. If your sports team or organization is looking to raise funds, Jersey Mike's in Round Lake Beach can tell you how. They're located at 536 East Rollins Road, and their number is 224-757-5391.
Parents, did you know that high school dropouts make 42% less than graduates? Someone will have to make up that difference, and chances are that will be you. That means paying 42% of their groceries.
Ooh, more candy.
42% of their dentist bills.
No more candy.
Even 42% of their therapy sessions.
It's all my dad's fault.
Save your money. Encourage your kids to stay in school. For help and advice, call 877-FORAKID. A message from the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
When I'm under, I'm weightless, floating away, and all I think about is doing it again.
Michael Swan is under the influence of his volunteer swim coach. Spending a little time coaching, he helps Michael stay off drugs. Be a coach, a mentor, a volunteer. No matter what it is, you have something to offer. Log on to helpyourcommunity.org or call 877-KIDS-31.